here do not have a mother? You didn't have a mother? We wondered about you. But we're going to celebrate Mother's Day, and I hope you think about taking the time to come up and say a little bit about your mother, whether she's still alive or she's gone. What did we learn from our mothers? I'm going to say that my mother taught me to be the way I am, because that's the same way she was, you know. So, but we're going to get started with horse training with a message, and then we're going to open it up to the mic. Tell us who you are and about your horse.
My name is Andrea, and this is a 14-year-old little horse.
Last page. Okay, you didn't talk enough. I was still busy.
Sorry.
Tell us, you told me that it gets in your space.
Yes, she doesn't have any personal space. She wants to be right here in your face.
How far away do you want her?
Like an arm length, maybe.
See, you just come to Cowboy-up Ministry and they obey. I know people like that. They come to church and all at once they get good. But when you leave church and you hit Highway 60 out there in traffic, so.
And then she also has a problem with her ears. She doesn't like her
we'll
ears
work with
touched.
her ears. It kind of looks like maybe she's had a little frostbite on her ears at one time. Let's watch you lead her around, because I want to see this space thing. Is this a new horse?
Yes, sir. We've had her maybe a month.
Had her a month, okay. And is this going to be yours, your daughter's?
My daughter's.
How old is she?
She's 5.
She's 5.
She used to take care of a
general.
7-year-old little boy.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
She knows you're here. That's why.
She knows I'm here. People, when you cannot decide whether to do something wrong or not, know God is here. He sees it. You do nothing in secret. So I'm going to give you a few ideas of how you can get more space. So, because it actually, how many of you have some friends that you would let come in this close? And you got some, you don't even want to be in the same room with them. You know, and that's the way we get to decide healthy boundaries. We get to decide how far this horse. See, part of what happens that most people don't catch, and I'm bad at it too, at church, because I'm always talking to the audience, is they steal steps. Mm-hmm. See, it just got a little closer and you didn't correct it because you were paying attention to me and not the horse. The thing about horse training is you have to pay attention to the horse. Now, a lot of times I have to rely on Tegan to tell me he's stealing steps. He's not where I put him. You know, I like that Bible verse that says, be still and know I'm God. Wherever I put them, I expect them to stay there. Just be still. How many of you drove up today and left your car in neutral where it could roll around? No, you drove up and you put it in park. I believe horses should have a park. Just stole another step. And that is the 100% natural reaction. You physically made him do it, but not as mine. Do you get that? So many people are trying to physically not sin when God wants your mind to not want to sin, because we're going to follow what we think. It starts in our mind. If you're not controlling the mind, all you did was move his feet. It hasn't done one bit of training. It just moved because it was a physical thing. Okay, we're going to walk around a little bit. And there's so many different things you can do with different horses because every horse is a little bit different. And a lot of times if they just start getting out in front of you, you just turn and go the other way. And then they're behind you again. And you turn and go the other way, and then they're behind you again. But what that does is it makes them start looking to you for directions. You know, if you're following somebody and you're in this little community and it's right turn, left turn, right turn, left turn, going back to somebody's house for a party, you watch their blinker. Okay, I know I'm going to turn right. I know I'm going to turn left. They start watching us to know which way we're going to turn. So in that watching us, it starts gaining a little bit of respect because they're focused on us. And it has nothing to do with this space, really. But I can't hardly correct that. I mean, that's a good, you don't want them any further away than that. Now, I've worked with some stallions that I did. I wanted them a little further away than that. But generally speaking, you know, that's good. Now, she said there was a little bit of trouble with her ears, so actually, as I reward her, I'm just rubbing over her ears anyhow. Do we have anybody that can come up and talk about their mom? A little testimony? All right. I'm trying to get this horse to mess up.
I got to give credit to my mom. She died a few years back. She was 96, but she was truly a Proverbs 31 woman. She was up before we were up in the morning, made us breakfast every day, and every night she was up way past our bedtime, mending our clothes, taking care of us. And every night after supper, she'd have us kneel around the kitchen table and pray. So she was really a blessing in my life. Thank you.
Wow. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a mama like that. That wasn't, my mama didn't go to church. My mama probably didn't get saved until she was 60. You know, so we all have a different thing that we can learn from our mama, and that's going to be a hard one to follow. I don't know who's going to be next. But we can all say what we learned from them, no matter how good they were. You know, how many of you, excluding Edgar, would say you had the perfect mother? And how many of you could say you were the perfect child? Oh! Who's next? I don't know how much further out of my... Oh. Okay. It's not going to get in my space, but it's going to get in her space. And I told her that I cannot transfer my salvation to you. It doesn't matter how much faith I have in God. I can't give that to you. It doesn't matter my knowledge I have of salvation. I can't give that to you. I can just point you to Jesus. In the same way comes with respect. Hold on just a second. You got, come here, girl. You got to leave this thing alone. It's okay. Just forget that it's there. Just forget it's there. It's not a bug. It's not going to bite you. And what was I saying? What I want to do is give you a few ways to get her out of your space that will be meaningful. You know, and it doesn't, there's several of them. I mean, one of them is like, if I want you further away, I'm just going to do, no. You want them further back? Get over there. You get to dictate healthy boundaries with everybody you meet. I dictate this horse how close it can be. Now, this is where you can get in trouble because I'll talk to you and they will steal a step. So, Tegan, you got to tell me. Horse training, there's a timing is so important. When they make a correction, when they make a mistake, you've only got 3 seconds to correct it maximum. And that's why many times when I get a horse to misbehave, I set the situation up for them to misbehave so my timing would be really good. And that's it, isn't it, Tegan? So, okay. Maybe I needed to bond with it. Did I hear, did you have trouble putting a halter over its ears?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
She
I'm
gets
gonna
real
do this real
skittish.
quick. I'm going to try to get up here where the camera can see. If you want to walk up front where you can watch. Is this a she?
Yes, sir.
Is she hard to catch?
Sometimes.
Well, she's in a pen. She won't be gone for long. A lot of times people try to walk right straight up in front of them to hold her. When you got a hard to halter horse, when you got a hard to catch horse, I like to have this prepared. Know where it's at. And I come up to their withers. Most of them will let you pet them on the side, but they won't let you come to their head because they know what happens next. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if you've ever done this or not, but I've gone out in the horse pasture to patch fence, and you can't keep them out of your pocket. You know, they're messing with you. Like, what are you doing? They're curious. What are you doing? But when you start walking to their head, it's a whole different story. But when I walk up here, this is one of the only times I hug a horse. I'm just not a hugger. But I come here and I hug them. And when I do, I reach my arm around and I reach that around, and now I've got them. And then I just slide that over the nose, and now they've got a holder on them. I never touch their ears. Now, for those nylon holders that you go over the ears, that's a different story. And she told me that it's pretty good going this way, but she don't like to go this way. One of the things is, I don't remember what trainer taught me this, but it was like, think about your end results and then think about how many steps can you take to get there. Like if the end results is to come up over behind its ears, well then you just start, you know, I'm rubbing on the other side just because it's not tangled up in the mane. And it's actually a good thing. I don't know if I have it, but you know, it's a girl. You can get a brush and a comb and just comb its hair a lot right here. And it makes those ears, they forget about the ears because they say, oh, they're. It just works when you run your fingers through a girl's hair. You know, they just relax more. They quit thinking about, oh, don't touch my ears. Don't touch my ears. Don't touch that ear. Okay. Go show me.
What do you want me to show you?
I want you to walk around and get it out of your space now. Okay. Different than the way you did it before. You got to make her want to get out of your space, not you. Okay, you got that one down pretty good. She's very good with that. We'll show you another one. What was the difference? I backed up with energy.
Your energy was
My body language said, get out of the way or I'll kick you. Do we have anybody else that can come talk? So that's another way to do it. You don't have to turn around and do the rope every time. You know, ideally you want to be able to just with your hands. It's not by physical force. It's with energy. There you go.
Well, being Mother's Day, of course, I can't sit in the audience and not brag on my mom. If there was ever a day to do it, it would be today, right? But it's not just my mom, it's both my parents. And in those early formative years, there really isn't a day that goes by that I don't put together things that happened, 50 years ago, how they invested in me and how they had made a lot of sacrifices for me and my sister. But being the firstborn, kids don't come with directions, right? So there's hits and misses, but I will say, not a day goes by that I don't recognize, now that I'm a parent and now that I'm 61, back in those early years, the sacrifices that they made. And I don't think anybody really knows that but me, and it's kind of been my heart of hearts, because it's one of those things, when it hits you, you're like, I remember that. So I guess we've come full circle now. Mom's still with us. She'll be, I think, 84 in October. But, the relationships change as we all get older. But I'm looking back at those formative years, at the sacrifices. And you do what you have to for your kids. And she and my dad both saw that my sister and I were in Christian school, and we had what we needed. It wasn't that we were off the chart rich. We didn't know. I mean, it was just, it was a certain time there. And it was because they made sacrifices that we didn't know, what the situation was. They made it happen some way. And their work ethic, I can't tell you the times that I wish they were with me now, walking along in my life, seeing the things that I see, because I want them to see the results of their sacrifice. And I'm so thankful. I just don't know how to say it, how thankful I am. But I was very, very fortunate looking back. Those early days in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, that was sort of a gift, or at least I see it that way. I didn't know what was going on in the world, and so it's kind of scary now with things that we're all faced with. But I have an anchor in my Lord and Savior Jesus, and I have an anchor that I can look back on from my upbringing, because of the sacrifice of two people that, of course, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. But the ripple effect, the people that I'm in HR, so the people I deal with, it's one of those things that just kind of flow. If they hadn't invested in me, how could I invest in other people that I come across? And so it's a domino effect, and it's really daunting when you look at the whole picture, that God has a plan, and we never quite know that. But I personally think in my life it started with my parents, and not just because they had me. Again, I go back to they invested in me, and for that I'm very thankful.
Amen. Here's something we're all guilty of. You're standing right here wasting your time. You're just standing there waiting. When you're trying to build a relationship. Mm-hmm. That's what, you think the problem is the ears, but the problem is a relationship of you touching it. So when you're standing here, just, you normally see me, I've got my arm over them. I'm connected to them in some way. There's a connection that feels different than
I'm just standing there.
I'm over here and you're over there. Because that's what I like. And some of you, maybe a few new ones here today, what's horses got to do with church? It's about this relationship I'm talking about. A horse will illustrate a relationship with the trainer like God wants with us. He don't want us to just turn our back on the Bible or on Him. He wants us to be connected. And that's why, when you've got time, barrel racing, whatever, just be touching them. And like I say, if ears is a problem, before long, you're just like, what's that problem over there? Because it's a miscommunication. The ears was not the problem. It was probably a fear factor of maybe being tied and pulling back. I've told them, I've actually seen when a horse gets a scar, a lot of times the hair will grow back white. And I've seen white all the way around horses' necks from somebody roped them, and it was a rope burn that made a scab and it come back white. Well, they naturally don't want you touching there. So, you got to build a relationship before they'll let you. And amazing, just that little bit changes their whole attitude. Mm-hmm. So, I think that can go for all of us. How many of us waste time? Are you on Facebook? I can't tell you how many hours I spend on Facebook because I have 2 pages. I have mine and I have Cowboy-up Ministry, and I use it like a newspaper. I don't spend a lot of time going out on everybody else's because I'll be careful about this before I state it. I'm not as concerned about what you think or say or eat. I know a lot of you are concerned about what I eat and my health. I know. I just have to post stuff like that because every once in a while God will give me a nugget to post, and it'll make somebody think different. It'll glorify God in some way. So Facebook to me is a job. If I didn't have Facebook, man, I'd have it made. But utilize our time good. How many of you, I'm going to give you this little test. How many of you think you can buy time? Debbie didn't hear me. Because years ago, we did a class about buying time. You can't buy more hours in a day. There's only 24. Everybody gets the same amount. When somebody says, I'm busy, I said, you got the same amount of hours I do. I'm not busy. I just pick and choose what I'm going to do. I learned a long time ago, Kathy, you remember which book it was, but it says, do the most important thing first. And then if you don't get done, it don't matter. You got the most important thing done. But what happens when we procrastinate? Is anybody out here procrastinators? Then we wait and leave the most important thing last, and then we still have to do it no matter what time it is. And normally it's after hours. And then it takes up family time, and it takes up whatever else you wanted to do. But you buy time, and I talked to Debbie into this. Hire somebody to mow your yard. She was mowing 3 acres. It took a lot of time. Now, I understand part of her was therapy because she couldn't hear the phone ring. She couldn't hear all these people that were and she had an excuse to get away. Now, she just don't take her phone anymore. She don't care. But be very cautious about how you use your time. And we talk about and we teach classes and everything, and it's going to be a big topic today about prayer. How many of you know prayer changes things? And the more we communicate with God, that's just praying. And the more we do, the more that communication goes. And we believe that our relationship with God should be like right here. Don't waste your time. My relationship with God is not, okay, I'm going to get up and we're going to do this Bible study at 5:15 every morning. See, that's a set block of time, and there's nothing wrong with that if you can't schedule time. But I want God to be an influence with me when I go to Dunkin' Donut, and then when I go to Cracker Barrel on Sunday morning, when I meet Jeremy. God needs to be, that relationship needs to be part of your day all day. God is not a sometimes God. It's kind of like, how many of you really believe your mother had eyes in the back of her head? Well, I've never seen a picture of it, but believe me, God does. Because He knows what we're going through and He knows what we're doing. So what else are we going to work on?
I'm not sure.
Okay, just lead it up and then tell it to get out of your space. In whichever way you want to do, I don't care. And I'm going to tell you, some horses know when they're in a pen. You take them out there and they're a different horse. And I know that. Just as sure as I know people are different when they come to church. Most of them are different. That's the good thing about being a smart aleck at church. I'm kind of the same way when I'm out of church. I'm still a smart aleck. So what else are we going to do? Who's going to talk? Just go ahead and back her up just to practice it, just a little further. Start off real easy. There you go. Use as little pressure as you can, as much as you need to. Oh, just for can we get another talker, please? I got something I need to do over here. Somebody come talk. Dennis, could you help us a minute? Tegan, get us a platform.
So my mom was a tough cookie. She was primarily raised in a girls' home. And back in the 30s, they were horrific. The stories she told me were unbelievable. But in the end, she ended up taking care of her mother. And she survived 4 husbands, 5 children, and she buried 2. But above all, her faith kept her going.
Did her faith help you? Yeah. One of the things about getting older, a lot of my friends have gotten older too. But we're at a stage now that either our mother's gone or our mother is very old in age, and the relationship just totally changes when you have to start taking care of them. And here's something that I learned. I just don't understand mothers. How mad they can get at a child. I'm talking about, young children. You don't have to teach a 2-year-old to lie. They know how. But how mad they can get at their children for lying. And then when that mother gets old and gets sick, she will lie to her children. Or at least not tell them the truth. It's the circle of lies. And we've got to educate ourselves and our parents. Like, Mom, tell me the truth. I think if we run across somebody that just recently, they didn't know she had cancer till the last 30 days of her life because she never told the family. Because I don't want them to worry. How much worry did they cause you? Go ahead and let them worry a little bit. But we would rather know the truth so we could prepare ourselves how to deal with it when we know it's coming. Kathy?
Jet was just saying that he has noticed that when the horse is lunging, that seems to be when there's some personal space issues is during the lunge.
Good catch.
So maybe something to work on there.
Lunge. Okay. Let me show you. Give me a little bit more room. For those of you who haven't seen it, this is what comes natural to people is not the right way. Unless you've been taught, normally you want the horse to go around you, so you wind up coming back here and getting them to go around you, and the horse is in the middle lunging you. You're the one on the outside. The number one thing, in fact, a quote Clint Anderson made, the one who moves their feet first loses. If you have to move your feet, you just lost. Now, with that being said, you want to start off in the right place. You got to have the right idea. What is it that I want? Come on, try to turn around to the camera a little bit here. What is it that I want? I want the horse to go that way around me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to open that door, and I've got to get this ready. I'm going to open that door. I'm going to shut this door. My feet never moved. I'm going to stop them. If they get too close, move them out. Bring them in. Bring them in. Is this the one that runs off the trailer backwards? Mm-hmm. This yo-yo thing is huge. You got to learn how to bring them in. You get the distance I want you to have. And when I'm teaching one to lunge, I want it to be close enough that I can touch them. That's what this is for. You know, if I had a stick, I'd use a stick. Do you use a stick, Buggy Whip? What do you use? Nothing?
Sick.
You know, but you literally, where I point over there, I want you to go over there. I'm asking. I'm telling. I'm demanding. Oh, she's got an attitude now. Get that attitude over there. Go that way. See, I just keep the door open and shut the other door. She says, I don't know about going that way. Look at the whites in her eyes. People, let me tell you, did anybody see the white in her eye? Never buy a horse that has white in her eye. They're just, when they get excited and that white shines, well, I'm going to rephrase that. It's going to be better for you because it's going to teach you to be a better trainer. But if you don't want to become a trainer, horses with white in their eyes are going to make you become a better trainer. Or they're going to walk all over top of you because that white has more of an explosive, I don't want to. I'm fine. I'm fine until I don't want to. And when I don't want to, I don't want to. You scared of flags? Mm-hmm. Notice, I'm not trying to hold her. I'll back up as far as she does. I'm just presenting it to her for her to check out. I don't want to touch her. I want her to touch the flag. Avoidance always comes before surrender with animals, children, husbands, and God. How many times do we avoid God when we know we're in sin? See her touch it? See, it had to be her idea. People, that's a sermon right there. It's got to be your idea to come to God. It can't be mine, can't be JP's, Debbie's. It can't be a song. It's got to be your idea to come closer to God, to face the things that scare you. Open that door. Flag just makes it a little easier. Close that door. And as soon as she moves, the pressure goes away. You know, if the pressure stays there, that's a whole nother level of training. You're really desensitizing them. We got another speaker? I'm asking. Good.
Good morning. I've been training and riding horses my whole life, but I can come here and learn so much from this fella. It's just amazing to me. But I want to say something about my mother. Being as I've got the opportunity, I can't turn that opportunity down to give testimony about my mama. She's been gone. She died when she was 80, about 8 years ago, I think it was, 7 or 8 years ago. And she had colon cancer. And she dealt with it, and she also found out she had a cyst in there, and they got it out. And she was getting better for 6 months, and thought they were going to put the foot of colon back and hook it back up, and everything was going to be fine. But in 6 months, the cancer cells spread all throughout her organs, and then she went downhill. And that's the first time I ever seen her get mad with God. One time, and sitting in there, she got so frustrated with God, and then instantly went to him and asked forgiveness for that. And that was the only time. It only lasted a moment. And I told her, that's the first time I ever seen you get mad at God. But what turned her to Christ, I was 10 years old, and we at the beach over there, Bradenton, and drinking, got involved, and one of her uncles got in a argument with his wife, and he knocked the window out, and it cut his arm to the bone. Well, her and my dad rode to the hospital, and I'm 66 now. This was a long time ago. And my mom and dad didn't go to church, didn't take me to church, and I was 10. And it upset my mother so bad that when she got home, she had friends that went to that Pleasant Grove Assembly of God church there, my home church. And man, she was right there at the altar, down at the altar. And just a few weeks went by, she says, you want to go to church? I said, no. And my daddy said, you going to church, boy. Because he didn't go. And I just want to thank God today that my mom and daddy made me go to church. And my daddy made me go for 5 years. When I turned 15, I started getting crazy and wild, got me a motorcycle, started smoking cigarettes, and I told my daddy every day, I don't want to go to church Sunday, Daddy. I want to stay home with you. Well, he made me go, and I started telling him that when I was 14, and for a couple of months I told him that, and finally, he said, all right, you're 15 now. If you don't want to go to church, you don't have to go to church. Whew. But I just want to thank my mother and tell all your mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. I miss my mama. I miss them Sunday meals. I cooked yesterday, and it's waiting on me. And it ain't too bad. I paid attention in the kitchen, and she taught me well how to cook. But I just want to lift my parents up today and thank them for making me go to church. They made me go for 5 years, and it made a difference. God got a hold of my heart, and he showed me the right way to live and go. And I've run out there in the world of sin. My life's a mess. I mean, I'm a prodigal son story over and over. Been divorced 3 times. And
slow learner too, ain't you?
But the wives have gone, but the horses are still there. As far as I know, they'll be there till I die.
That's a man that knows what he can control and what he can't. I'm going to change. I could get the response with a flag. I mean, if you were watching, I didn't want to take the time to waste my time when I was by it. So what it seemed like it was scared of the flag, I was up here petting it with it. That's how you don't waste time around horses. Anything they're scared of, what's this deal? If you're scared of plastic bags, what do you get? If you're got something in your life that's bothering you, guess what? You're going to keep getting it until you overcome it. But I decided to use the stick just because I didn't want it to be, totally wide-eyed. We'll practice this way. My idea is I want the lead rope to be about the length of the stick. So when I point, I can touch. That's all it is. I'm not going to move my feet. Now, if they back up, I'll back up with them. I'm not going to try to. I have trouble understanding people that think they can hold an 900-pound horse. Like, what makes you think you're that strong? But we try it all the time. But it's just keep your feet still. That's why I want them looking at me. And I open that door. I didn't even have to pick the stick up. I opened and I asked. Is all I had to do. Now, you have to give them more rope if you want a bigger circle. Some people are, they send them, but the rope comes tight and it just stops them and they turn around. So you ready for the attitude? Watch this. Go that way. I don't want to go that way. I'm scared of that eye. See what happens when you're more than 4 foot away? You can't touch them. When I'm here, There you go. Oop, don't step on that. Let's practice that again before I get dizzy. Okay, think about it. And a lot of horses, we don't understand that you buy one horse, but you have to train two because each eye sees differently. You know, you can do something on one side all day, and it's not the same on the other side. And it's pretty common because everybody spends all their time over there. You need to spend part of it over here. In fact, they say whatever side's the weak side or the scary side, spend 2/3 of your time over there. You know, it's easier for her because her hair's on that side. Oh. I told you girls were smart. Good job. The biggest reason animals and some people misbehave is because people don't know how to tell them yes and how to tell them no. And the universal, how many of you know the universal language for no? It works. Okay. Jack Henning said he's talked more horses out of doing trouble than he ever trained. You see, I had to go through the battle to get to there. Let's get bigger. If I'm trying to get bigger, I take the stick from the ground because that's no pressure. If she was closer to me and I wanted her further away, it's the stick under her belly. Moves them away. That moves them out further. Careful, there's something over there. See how she wants to look the other way, avoid, and all that stuff. Oops, they're careful, there's something there. How many of you know sometimes you got to go through hard things in life to get to peace on the other side? You know, you got to go through hard conversations with your spouses, with your children. You know, who else got another mother story? Okay, come show us one time. Tell us what you're going to do, and then show us.
I'm going to ask her to go this way.
Okay, you need to be close enough that you can touch her if you need to. And if you want her further away, just give her rope and push her with the stick. Yep, you stopped her. It's okay. They just get to practice going again. So I don't mind stopping a bit. It's just more practice to start. If they come in, that's when I take that stick up underneath, you know, about where the girth goes to get them. Because what some of them will want to do is cut the corner. How many have we got in our group that their mothers are gone? How many have we got in our group that our mothers are over 75? You know, they're getting later in their years, and some of them over 80. They're getting later in their years, and the relationship changes. You know, there's just a lot to be considered there. Okay, one of the things I like to do is when I stop them, I want to bump their hip, but I want to bump their nose, but look at their hip. Their hip's what I want to move. Mm-hmm. So Did you see me do that? Do you
I
understand
did.
what I'm talking? Do that one time. Get her to go, and then get her to yield her hip and face you. Okay? You know, I'm real big on yielding hips. It's good. How do you know when to yield a hip and when to move their shoulders? It's a good question. Glad you asked it. Let me show you. I don't like sticks. You know, I could never carry a stick when I was working cows. So I had to learn to use a rope the whole time. So, you know, for me, all that is a limber stick. I can use it just as good. But a lot of times, if I've got a horse that is scared of me, more hyper, more I'm wanting to draw a connection to me. We'll just use that. I want the relationship to come to me more, like God does. So when I lunge them, I'm going to yield her hip, and a lot of times you can actually train them. I had horses, trained several of them, that every time I walked away, I patted my leg twice. I could walk out in the pasture with them, pat my leg, and they'd follow me to the barn. Because they learn what comes next. But if you've got one that's in your lap, they're like, want to step on your toes. They do all these things wrong. If I'm going that way, I'm going to change hands and change directions and move their shoulder. I'm moving them away from me. That's just a big difference, and horses get it. One, I'm bringing them to me, and one, I'm moving them away from me by what the horse needs. Now, some days they need one thing, some days they need another. They're all up in your lap, stepping on your toes. Tegan knows what I'm talking about. Probably the Chris Cox would fall out in me. You know, they just want to get on top of me, so I'd just drive their shoulders away. Drive their shoulders away. Get off of me. But you see, if you don't know how to speak horse language, if you don't know how to communicate with them, how do you expect them to learn? And it starts with the relationship. The horses boss one another around all the time. They don't mind being bossed around as long as it's fair. What is fair? When they do the right thing, the pressure goes away. When they do the wrong thing, you get pressure until they do the right thing. You don't waste your time. You spend it with them. Hey, I'm your buddy. You spend your time with your mama when you got them, people. I heard a story this week about a man that stopped into a flower shop, and he was going to buy flowers and send to his mother for Mother's Day. And there was a little boy in there, and he had picked out some flowers and took them up to the cash register, and he didn't have enough money to pay for them. And the little boy just, he's a really polite little kid. I mean, he was big enough that he could go to the flower store by himself, walking. And he said, I really want these for my mama. And the man, he was like, he was sending flowers to his mama, and he was all proud of it and everything, and sending her this big bouquet. And this kid didn't want many flowers, and the guy says, hey, don't worry about it, I'll pay for it. So he buys the boy the flowers. And he says, where are you taking them to? He says, down the road. So the little boy starts walking, and the man sees him. He pulls over. He says, here, get in the car, and I'll take you. And he pulled up to a graveyard. Little boy was taking his mama flowers. Guy went back to the flower shop. He said, don't worry about mailing them. I'll take them. And some of us need to be present while our mothers are still alive, because they won't be forever. We don't understand the importance that mothers have. You can sit down. We're about done. there's several scriptures. I'm just going to read a couple. It says Proverbs 6:20 says, "Do not forsake your mother's teaching." For most of us, we had better mothers than we were children. Just saying. But the scripture tells us, don't forsake what they taught you. And what we were talking about, our older mothers in 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for members of his household, he's denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." And what he's saying is take care of your family when they get older. And we got several people in this church that's doing that. And not regrettingly, they're willingly doing that. But we don't understand some of the responsibilities that mothers have. In Titus 2, it says, "The older women must train the younger women to love their husbands and children." Now, do we have, I'm not going to ask, do we have any older ladies in here? But do you have anybody you're mentoring that's younger than you are? You see, how do we learn how to love our husbands and our children if somebody with experience don't teach us? It's like trying to train a horse and you've never owned one. We do it by trial and error. Or maybe we read a book. But man, it's so much better when it's firsthand experience like some of you've had. You had a good example of how you should handle the rest of them. How many of you know that without God you wouldn't be here today? I think a lot of us can say that. How many of you know prayer works? Prayer changes things. Prayer works. Of course, I love the song. Danny Ray Harris has got it. Prayer changes me when I pray. But it also changes circumstances. And let me tell you, I don't believe, there might be a small percentage, but I don't believe there's anyone who has ever prayed for you more than your mother or your grandmother. Because they know prayer works. And as we get older, we got to learn that we got to pray for the younger kids and the younger generation. Instead of just looking down our nose at them and telling them they're doing it wrong. How about we go to the man up above that can work through their mind, heart, and soul to change them from the inside? Because prayer works. So many times we're praying for the wrong thing. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, and it's going to lose some people and it's going to gain some people, but we're fixing Mother's Day over. We're fixing to start talking that forbidden word, politics. Because when you take God out of politics, you got a godless world. And we're going to start educating people of how to talk to your family on difficult situations that you don't agree with. You can't look at somebody and say, "You're stupid and you're wrong." You can think it, but you can't say it. I'm just kind of that way, and I love kind of how the mind works and things, and it's like people want to be heard. It's okay to say, "What do you believe about God?" People want to be heard, and then they will hear. But how many of you know we only listen enough to reply? We don't listen enough to understand. If we don't care about them, why should they care about what we think? But we have got to learn to change our household before we can change our community, our state, and our government. It starts at the bottom. We can't talk religion. Oh, I don't know if you can go to Mother's Day and talk religion today or not. Or politics. The two topics that should be talked about the most, Satan has made a way that we won't talk about them because we don't want to cause a conflict. We don't want to cause a conflict because we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to talk to somebody that differs with us and give them hope and energy and say, you know what, that's a valid point. But let me tell you what my God has done for me. Nobody can argue with your testimony. I've said I have broke all 10 of the 10 commandments. I remember the first time I said that from the pulpit, the round pen. It wasn't a round pen, it was actually a podium that day. And they said, who did you murder? I said, well, in Jesus' teachings, when you're mad at him, you've murdered. And there's a few of you in this church that I've already got. Says mad at them. We get mad at people when they don't think and do what we think they ought to think and do. Rather than, how do we communicate and say, hey, Kathy laughed at me when we were in Arcadia years ago. We lived there, and I was sitting in the living room with my laptop doing a Bible study, and years ago she bought me a Bible concordance. It's not a concordance, it's a Bible software. Years ago, high dollar stuff. And that's how I did all my research. And the Jehovah Witness knocked on the door. I smiled and said, come on in. Sat down, and they'd say something, and boy, I could type it in my little Bible software real quick, and I'd say, well, what about this? And they would stutter because they weren't taught any rebuttal. All they were taught was to say what they were taught to say. And I would ask them, and I would witness to them, well, what about this, and what about this? And maybe the whole Bible gives you a better picture than just part of the Bible. And finally, the older one says, okay, we've got to go. But I gave them an opportunity to hear the gospel without shaming them for who they are and what they think. And that's what we got to do. Mothers are taught the responsibility to teach children how to have better relationships, because it's for sure dads ain't good at that. We will die for you, and we will work our tail off for you, but we're not great at relationships. And that's part of the mother's job, is to teach us what we should do. We're going to close today, and we've got I'm guessing, is it a rose, Debbie? I don't know what we got, but we got flowers for every mother here. And if you'll check with Debbie, there'll be some men handing them out. You know, whether you're a mother, stepmother, or you're just mothering your neighbor's children, that's okay. You fulfill the role of motherhood. You encourage. You teach. You get them to understand about the life in the world. You know, one of the biggest goals that I think is placed more on the mother, and it was talked about some today, is its mother have a bigger influence on making disciples of their children. You see, the Bible says go and make disciples of all nations, but really what disciples mean is a student of. They're a disciple of Jesus. They're a student of Jesus. I am a student. I want to learn more and more and more. And when we can get our children to want to learn more about Jesus, we've succeeded in life. So I'm going to guess there's going to be some left over. If you're going somewhere and you want to take some with you to your mother, maybe you're going, or you know someone who needs it. Hey, we don't want to take any home. You know, I hate to admit it, but we went shopping yesterday and Kathy bought her own. That way she got the one she wanted. But as we close, pick up some flowers for you and for anybody you want to take. Let's close. Father God, we thank you for mothers, because without them we wouldn't be here. And there's so many times it was our mother that pointed us to you. And we thank you for that. Our mothers loved us when we were unlovable, showing the love of God. It's the closest thing to unconditional love that we can understand, is the love of our mothers. Because we weren't always good. But Lord, I thank you. I thank you for the mothers that taught us the right way. I thank you for the mothers that are still here and those that are gone. But Lord, I pray that we can become all that you want us to be as we communicate with our mothers as they get older, and we learn to communicate them on every avenue that will bring them closer to you. Lord, we just thank you. We thank you that we can celebrate mothers because you created them with a very special purpose. I can only imagine what Jesus' mother felt. But God, we thank you. And we ask all of this in your precious Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you. The men have got flowers for you. Help yourself.